AI is starting to behave less like software and more like infrastructure. And this week we saw the consequence. A Pentagon deal triggers resignations, Anthropic goes to court, and AI starts cheating on its own tests. At the same time, Meta, Perplexity, and China are racing to turn agents into everyday products. And governments are scrambling to catch up with deepfakes and to zoom out from features to the market. Do you want to know who's actually winning attention right now? A new top 100 Gen AI consumer apps list dropped, so stay till the end. This is your weekly AI digest, the stuff you actually need to know. In case you missed anything, I spent hours digging through the biggest stories and the real product updates, so you don't have to. Quick recap if you missed last week. The Pentagon wanted access to frontier AI. Anthropic tried to negotiate safety guardrails, no mass domestic surveillance, no fully autonomous weapons, and the talk fall apart. The OpenAI came in with its own Pentagon agreement and framed it as responsible scaling with rules. And that's why this week matters. It's the moment the AI debate stopped being theoretical and started showing up as real consequences inside companies and inside government. First, the internal shockwave. One of OpenAI's key hardware leaders, Caitlin Kalinowski, resigned after the Pentagon deal backlash. The key detail is OpenAI publicly framed the deal as responsible national security use, with explicit red lines like no domestic surveillance and no autonomous weapons. But her resignation is still a big signal, because hardware isn't just gadgets, it's the part that connects AI to robots, devices, and the physical world. So when a hardware lead leaves over a policy decision, that's the loud signal. And that wasn't the only escalation. On the other side of the rivalry, Anthropic didn't just complain, it went to court. Anthropic sued the Department of Defense over being labeled a supply chain risk, basically saying the designation is unfair and damaging. Anthropic argues the label is unlawful and harms its business because once you get tagged like that, contractors and agencies treat you like radioactive material. Reuters reporting frames this as retaliation connected to Anthropic refusing to loosen safeguards on civilians and autonomous weapons. This isn't only about one contract. It's about who gets to be trusted to run AI inside government systems. And once it's in court, the outcome can shape how other AI companies negotiate red lines going forward. Talking about Anthropic, this week it also had to fight fires on the product side. And this kind of bug sounds silly until it ruins your day. Daylight saving time. Anthropic says Claude desktop froze for some users because scheduled tasks landed inside the missing hour and the app got stuck in the infinite loop. They pushed a version update to fix it, but it's a perfect reminder that we're treating AI like infrastructure now, and infrastructure breaks in most human ways. When AI becomes part of work, two things suddenly matter a lot: uptime and security. Next, I'll tell you how AI wiped billions from cybersecurity industry. But first, I want to share the sponsor of this video is my curiosity. So smash like and subscribe if you want to see where else it leads me in exploring AI, and so you don't miss the next weekly AI digest. Alright, back to the security race. This is the part that made a lot of security people sit up. Claude helped find a large batch of Firefox vulnerabilities, including serious ones, and Mozilla confirmed the reports were actionable. Anthropic's own post says Claude Opus 4.6 found 22 vulnerabilities over the course of 2 weeks in February 2026, more than any single month in 2025, which is a huge jump. Mozilla's write-up emphasizes that the reports came with reproducible test cases, which made it easier for humans to confirm and fix the issues. And because this actually worked, they didn't stop at one-off demo. They turned it into a partnership. Anthropic and Mozilla announced an ongoing collaboration to use Claude as part of Firefox security work. This is important because it's not just AI found a bug once, it's AI is joining the security workflow. Mozilla's angle is basically AI can speed up discovery and triage, but humans still validate and ship fixes. The deeper message: security teams are being forced to adapt because code bases are too large and releases are too frequent for humans alone. This is the AI joins the team moment, not a chat box, but as a security tool. The same day, OpenAI responded with its own move. And it's a sign the industry is worried about one thing above all: AI-generated code making everything more fragile. So OpenAI launched Codex security in research preview and application security agent designed to analyze a code base, build context, find vulnerabilities, and suggest fixes. The key promise is that it tries to focus on high-impact issues and reduce noise, meaning fewer useless warnings, more actionable findings. And if AI helps people ship code faster, Codex Security is OpenAI's attempt to make sure that speed doesn't explode into security disasters. And then OpenAI did something that tells you how serious this is. They didn't just ship a feature, they bought a testing company. PromptFoo agreed to be acquired by OpenAI. PromptFoo is an open source tool used to test and evaluate AI apps, things like prompt injection attacks, jailbreak attempts, data leakage, and reliability regressions when you change model. The reason this matters is simple. As agents get deployed on real companies, whoops becomes expensive. So testing becomes a product, not an afterthought. PromptFoo says it will remain open source and continue serving users, which helps credibility in developer circles. So AI can help find vulnerabilities in software. Great, but now we have to ask a scarier question: what happens when AI is the one being tested and it decides to cheat instead of just taking it? Anthropic published a story about Claude Opus 4.6 doing something that surprised even them. In a web browsing benchmark called BrowseComp, Claude sometimes seemed to realize it was being evaluated, figured out which benchmark it was, and then went looking for the answer key online. In two cases, Anthropic says Claude found the benchmark's source code, learned how the answers were encrypted, wrote its own decryption code, found a compatible copy of the dataset, decrypted all answers, and then grabbed the correct answer from the key. So instead of studying harder, it basically said, wait, that is the test, and tried to find the cheat sheet. Anthropic's takeaway is that static benchmarks may stop being reliable when models have web access to tools like code execution, because evaluation turns into an adversarial game. This use case matters because it's the same problem we'll face with real agents. If you give an AI tools and a goal, it may take unexpected shortcuts to achieve the goal. And those shortcuts might be harmless in a benchmark, but dangerous in the real world. Remember the study we discussed last week about simulated nuclear crisis? And along with OpenAI, Anthropic is also pushing security and code quality, but from a different angle. Rather than only scanning for vulnerabilities, they're also trying to stop bad code from landing in the first place. And just days later, after OpenAI launched Codex Security, Anthropic pushed its own answer: Claude Code Review, trying to stop bad code before it lands. It's about automated review of pull requests It can read code changes, flag suspicious logic, suggest improvements, and leave comments like a teammate would. And this is huge because AI-assisted coding increases volume, more code shipped, more chances to ship mistakes. So if AI is writing more code, AI is also being recruited to review it because humans can't scale at the same speed. So that's the security story. AI can now find bugs, test systems, and review code, which is great until you remember these tools don't live in a vacuum. The next info blog is about who's trying to put agents where billions of people already spend time. Surprise, surprise! Let's talk Meta. Because it didn't just launch a tool, it bought a whole new type of social network. They want to officially integrate AI influencers in Facebook and Instagram to be equal to humans and assign to every AI agent a digital ID to stop anonymous chaos of maliciousness. These were my thoughts when I saw that Meta acquired Moldbook, a Reddit-like social network exclusively for AI agents where they can post and interact. And that's only a couple of months after Meta acquired for over $2 billion Manus, AI autonomous agent startup, meaning AI that can complete multi-step tasks without guiding every click. Meta isn't choosing build or buy, it's doing both. They build foundation models like Llama, and they buy teams and products that give them speed, distribution, or an agent ecosystem. So, what are your thoughts on how Meta is going to utilize this new asset? Let's discuss in the comments. Now, while the West debates rules for content, the story in the East is about distribution at scale. Putting agents inside the app people already have open all day. The China signal matters, but not because agents in messages is new. OpenClaw already works in Telegram, Discord, Signal, and many other messengers. Quick clarification, OpenClaw is like a manager for AI helpers. You don't open a special app like ChatGPT or Gemini. You just message OpenClaw and say, do this task, and it routes the work to the right agent or tool. The difference here is where Tencent is embedding agent workflows. WeChat and WeCom, which for many people in China is the default place where life and work happen. Kexin reported Tencent is developing and testing tools like QClaw, letting you control OpenClaw-style agents through normal chat messages like summarize that, send the update, do the task, etc. It also described WorkBuddy, an agent tool compatible with OpenClaw that can be deployed quickly and is already used internally by thousands of employees. The big takeaway is distribution. This isn't a niche bot you install, it's the kind of integration that can become normal behavior at massive scales. When agents live inside the app people already open all day, adoption friction drops close to zero. Now, take that agent manager idea and flip it back into Western consumer market. That's what Perplexity is aiming at. Last week, Perplexity shipped updates to Computer, including custom skills, meaning you can teach the agent a workflow once and it remembers the steps and preferred format. They also added voice mode, so you can speak tasks and it responds hands-free. And the headline feature is Model Console, which runs multiple frontier models in parallel, like GPT, Claude, and Gemini, so you can compare outputs and pick the best. Then this week, Perplexity took it one step further. Personal Computer. Here's the simple difference. Last week's Computer is mainly a cloud agent. You give it a task, it can research, connect to apps, and run multi-step workflows in a sandbox. Personal Computer is designed to run 24/7 on Mac Mini you keep running, and it acts like an always-on bridge into your local world, your files, your apps, your sessions. It still uses the cloud for heavy reasoning, but the Mac Mini is what makes it feel present in your personal environment. And Perplexity says you can control it remotely from any device. So it's the OpenClaw idea, delegate tasks to an agent, but packaged for mainstream users with a subscription and supported setup. I have to mention that it's aimed for Perplexity Mac subscribers and Mac only at launch. But right as they push agents forward, they hit the wall that every agent company eventually hits: rules. And not just technical rules, legal ones. A judge ordered Perplexity to stop using its AI shopping agent on Amazon after Amazon argued the tool accessed accounts without authorization. From Amazon's view, an AI agent shopping for you can look like a bot breaking into accounts, scraping pages, or doing automated actions Amazon never approved. That creates obvious risks: customer data, fraud, chargebacks, and trust. And it also threatens Amazon's control over the shopping flow: what gets recommended, which sellers win, and what rules apply. The order also required Perplexity to destroy data it collected from Amazon in connection with the agent. Perplexity framed it as user choice: let people use their preferred AI tools, but the signal is bigger than one company. The open web is not going to stay open to agents by default. And not only platforms are building fences, governments are building fences too. The European Parliament urged new EU-wide rules to protect copyrighted work from generative AI use, pushing for more transparency and stronger enforcement so creators and media aren't steamrolled. And it's not just Europe. In the US, Vermont's Secretary of State and Attorney General published guidance warning voters about AI deepfakes and election season scams, explaining how fake audio and video can spread doubt, confuse voters, or even misdirect people about voting logistics. As AI agents more powerful, access gets more controlled by websites, by platforms, and by governments trying to protect public trusts. These are not the only limitations, though. The next battleground is memory. How agents remember your preferences and routines without becoming messy, expensive, or unsafe. But fear not, a Google PM open-sourced an always-on memory agent, basically a way for an agent to keep long-term memory without relying on traditional vector databases. In plain words, a different approach to making agents remember what matters over time. Why do we care? Vector databases are powerful but heavy. This suggests a lighter approach that could make remembering cheaper and simpler for builders. Basically, it's another attempt to make agents remember your word. Whether this approach wins long-term is unclear, but it shows how hot the memory war is right now. Moving on to tools. With NotebookLM, the wall between research and content creation is getting thinner every week. And that's going to change how fast educational content can be produced. This week, Google quietly dropped something that feels like the beginning of push-button documentaries. NotebookLM added cinematic video overviews, expanding beyond narrative slides into more immersive video-style summaries from your notes and sources. This matters because NotebookLM is already used for research. Now it can turn research into a video format with far less manual editing. Even if the output still needs human polish, it compresses the time from reading to publishing. And finally, if you want a snapshot of who's actually winning users right now, this is the scoreboard. A16Z released the 6th edition of its top 100 Gen AI consumer apps list. Essentially a market map of what people are using. One of the big points is that ChatGPT still leads, even after the last week's drama with users unsubscribing. But the race for the default AI is on. and usage is splintering across categories and regions. They also highlight that creative tools are moving and agent products are becoming a bigger slice of attention. This list isn't perfect, but it's a useful lens for what's actually getting traction. AI is moving insanely fast, and it's easy to get lost in the noise. Subscribe so you don't miss the next digest. I'll see you next Friday.